Welcome to Pirate Living Podcast. We are your hosts, Kristen and Karan. On this podcast, we are highlighting ordinary people living extraordinary lives. These are pirates who take small, bold actions daily to create social change. Pirate life is all about rebelling and breaking the rules for good. Creating lasting social change starts by first breaking our inner rules. After all, the hardest rules to break are your own. The pirates we highlight have dedicated themselves to creating good trouble.
Today, we're sitting down with Samantha Lander. Sam is a functional diagnostic practitioner, a certified personal trainer, and a CHEK holistic lifestyle coach. She uses functional lab testing and extensive health screenings to address a wide range of health stressors and create customized wellness programs for her clients. Samantha is also a DJ and the owner of CFit. We are thrilled to be talking with you today, Samantha.
Yeah, I am too. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, welcome. So Samantha, you've been charting your own course through the health and wellness space, and we would love to hear from you what started you on your pirate journey and what led you to where you are today.
So I was always sort of like into health and wellness and fitness growing up, but I was always kind of a chronically sick child. I was diagnosed with IBS and all these things. I had a lot of stomach problems and a lot of I remember being exhausted all the time. I remember I worked at a daycare and I would go in and I'd be ready to take a nap with these kids when they went down. I couldn't stay awake. And I was like, this is not normal. I just knew something was off. And that was sort of the roller coaster my entire life until I sort of had I had my DJ journey where I lived in LA and I definitely led a very, very unhealthy life. But I think, a lot of my health anxiety and health ailments, I guess, that were going on, I masked a lot of it by using drugs because it kind of got me out of my head. It got rid of my anxiety and it made me feel like normal in a lot of ways. So after I was in LA, I sort of had I got myself in a lot of trouble. I went to prison, but I moved home, and that's where I really did a massive change of my lifestyle. So that's when I decided to become a personal trainer. And through that journey, as I was training people, I never really felt good. Still, it all kind of came back. And even when I was in prison, I did not feel well. But I was doing all the right things. I was eating right. I was exercising. I was I wouldn't even have a cheat meal. I was just on it. And I couldn't get a grasp on why do I feel so bad all the time? I just want to feel better. My clients are getting results. Some people wouldn't, and they kind of get stuck. But I noticed that there were certain people that couldn't get to the next level, and then there's some that were, and I was one of those that I did all the right things. And so I started basically digging a lot deeper into what else it could be. And that's when I started running functional labs on myself. And I mean, the first lab that I did was a food sensitivity test, and there was probably 50 things on there. I was so reactive to everything I was eating. And I eliminated that. And I mean, within 1 week, it was a game changer. I think I lost 10 pounds in the first week of it wasn't fat. It's just so much inflammation on the body, just dumping off of me. And then in that, I had chronic diarrhea was kind of the main thing, and a lot of bloating. I couldn't, I just felt awful. And so that sort of helped temporarily, but I was okay, well, there's more. So I started running, I did a hormone adrenal panel. And I was okay. And I was super estrogen dominant. So, and my cortisol was just tanked. I over-exercised, I overtrained, I did a ton of cardio. I probably worked out 2 hours a day because I thought that's what I needed to do, work out more, right? And that was only hurting me. So I actually quit I quit doing all cardio. I just lifted weights, went on a supplement protocol. And it was definitely there's a roller coaster on adjusting with hormones, but within a month and a half or so, my life changed. It was a full, I was my energy was better. I finally was able to lose weight and reach my goals. My stomach was getting better. I wasn't so tired all the time. I mean, I worked my butt off. But I, and then the next step was I ran a GI panel, and I had a ton, I think I probably had at least 4 or 5 parasites since I started running them, a lot of GI bacterial infections. I probably had everything at this point. So that's like sort of when I was like, oh, okay, well, that opened up major doors for me. And it was a journey. I mean, I went to practitioners, I wasted thousands and thousands of dollars, but I learned through all of it. So I think that's what, me being able to be empathetic with my clients is like the best part of the journey. As much as it was horrible, like going through it, I now can relate to them. And that's when I was like, okay, I got to start doing this. So that's when I got certified. I was like, there's so much more to the puzzle than just like calories in, calories out, macros, like work out more. It's like, I want to like smack people when I hear that. So that's sort of it. And here I am.
And yeah, it's such a common thing in like the health and wellness space to just be like calories in, calories out. If you're not getting where you want, you're not working hard enough, blah, 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 all that bullshit. Whereas, like you said, there's so many more deeper pieces to the puzzle. And hormones matter, whatever those hormones are. Like, what are you talking about? Like cortisol, you're talking about our reproductive hormones, as well as like our gut health is huge and how that impacts our hormones. And all these things are so interconnected. And, one of the things that is huge too is just like stress. And I don't think we rest enough. And that is definitely something that I learned the hard way as well. But just like that, we need rest, we need that downtime. And so, yeah, everything that you say is like, you totally resonating with me and what I do with my clients as well.
Yeah, there's definitely a stigmatism on like, if you take a nap during the day or you have downtime or you're not doing something, then you're lazy.
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of people think that, or some people like to not stop because they don't want to think. They don't want to deal. They don't want to face whatever shit they got going on in their life. And so they just keep going.
Totally.
And I'm curious, I'm stuttering. Sorry. I would like to go back. Would you be willing to share as well a little in your backstory of like the prison time that you had too, and what led you, like how'd you get there? And then how'd you get from there to here?
So I definitely was a pirate. I was a rule breaker for sure. So I just sort of, I grew up with this like mentality in my head where, you gotta live life to the fullest. So, fucking go for it. Like do whatever the fuck you want. And it wasn't like, now looking back, I'm like, well, that means like, why don't I go climb Mount Everest, or why don't I travel? And like, that's living life to the fullest, not going and like getting fucked up. So I just was very like, I love to like have fun. I'm like a complete fun addict. And so anything that pertained to like having extreme amounts of fun was sort of like my go-to. And but the thing is, I always had such a good balance with being very successful in all the other areas of my life. I went to University of Michigan. I graduated almost with honors there. And, I was the #1 rower in the US in high school. I was a state swimmer, and I was still able to like go party and do all this stuff. So when I was in college, I started visiting a friend out in LA quite a bit. And with that, he was gay, and I was kind of hanging out in this gay scene, and they do a lot of drugs and they party, and it was like, but it was safe. I had just gotten out of a really toxic relationship, and being around them, I knew they didn't have a motive, but being my friend, they were true friends. Well, I mean, most of them were true friends. Down the road, they probably weren't like in the drug world, but in the beginning, they were like the legit my friends. I still talk to them all the time, and it just was safe. They didn't have, like I said, an ulterior motive. And so I partied with them a lot, but I got into using meth. So I was self-medicated. I was diagnosed ADD, ADHD, like everybody else, I guess, but I never took the medicine. I've never taken a pharmaceutical, which is the strangest thing. And it made me sick when I tried to take it. And so I basically started self-medicating. And it was the only, like, I was able to concentrate. My grades were amazing. Like, it just took me to like a level where like my monkey brain was not like off the charts every effing day, like making me crazy, and like spinning on whatever it is I decided to like spin on. And so that kind of became my drug of choice amongst like all the other party drugs when I was out in LA. And then after college, I had a job, and I was supposed to help launch a liquor, and I moved out to LA, and the job fell through and I was living at this actress's house sitting, and I was like, I'm going to be a DJ. So I went out and I bought, because I would love going to like the clubs with the gay boys, like the circuit parties and all this stuff. And I was like, I'm going to do this. This is what I'm going to do. Like if I have a vision, I don't even have a mini vision. It's like, I'm going to be the best and the most successful at whatever I'm going to do. Like I can just see myself up there, like playing in front of everyone. Like I just go there, which is, I guess it's great. And that was it. I was on a mission and I did it. Like there weren't a lot of female DJs at the time, I'll give you that. But I mean, I was good at it, and I was really, really successful, but I was also selling drugs at the time. So basically that sort of escalated, and I started hanging out with some people more in like the straight scene and DJing a lot in that. And I got into like a really toxic relationship, and basically after that, it was like my life fell apart between the drug use, and he just was really like unsafe, dangerous. Like I mean, granted, I probably would have gotten arrested at some point in my life, but basically what happened was he had brought 7 gallons of GHB over to my apartment from my dealer that had gotten busted. And basically they tracked it, and I had a full SWAT raid at my house. I actually quit selling drugs 2 weeks before. It's just weird how like I have some weird shit in my life. I'm like, it's like I have an instinct. Like I know when my limit is. Like I take things to like next level, and then I'm like, okay, I'm done. I got it. I can't do this. So after that, yeah. So then I ended up getting LA County time, and then I also did federal prison time. So, and I did 2 years in federal prison. I don't regret one bit of it. So it's part of my journey, part of my path, and that's what happened.
How did that time in prison like change you?
It was exactly what I needed. For me, I didn't have a kid. I was 26. I had been in utter hell for at least 2 years when I was with this guy. I mean, before that, it was still fun, sort of, but like once I met this guy, it was just, I was like, it wasn't even me. I wasn't even like a person. It was like a shell, and I avoided my family, and I lost my way. The second I got sober, I like started laughing again. Like I went and checked myself in a rehab before, like right before it even happened. And it was like my whole personality came back. And in prison, it's just like you find yourself, and I became like myself again, and I found myself. Like I read a lot of books. I got, my work ethic has always been really good. I worked really, really hard, getting paid 2 pennies an hour. I had solid friends. I, learned to trust people again. I did a residential drug treatment program there, where you do a lot of like you really do a lot of self-care and self-work, or work on yourself, and how to be rational about like your impulsive ideas and your thinking, and go through all of that. It was really intense. Like I still, like one day I got out the books, I'm like, oh my God, I should be doing this with my clients. Like this is crazy. It's like the best program ever. I think we all need to do it. So I mean, I did it. I really took advantage of it the best that I could. But when I would look at like one of my like roommates, I guess is what we say, that I had a majority of the time, she had a young son that was basically stuck in Hell's Angels, that biker gang, getting raised by them, like getting from home to home. Her mom died. She wasn't allowed to get furlough out to see her mom, or to go to the funeral, which basically means you get a choice in prison. Like if someone's dying or sick, you can go see them, or you can go to basically the funeral. They like wouldn't let her out. So like I watched people go through things like that, and that's where you really have like a massive amount of gratitude for like where you're at, and that like you're lucky that you're alive and you're able to like flourish after this.
Yeah. So what are some, as you were going through that, through the self-development changes, all those the programs too, were there any uncomfortable questions that you got to ask yourself and dig into to help you move forward?
I think the hardest part for me is just practicing, humility, and it was probably pre-prison. is the biggest part for me is, you know, being humble enough to like tell my parents everything and be like, this is what I was doing. Like I always kind of like skirted around or kind of half-assed the story. So I was like, okay, shit just got really real. So like, you know, was getting federally indicted and was looking at 22 years in prison. So I think at that point I had to just be really, really humble and realize like my best decision is my worst. And that, you know, I can't be impulsive. I have to think about what I'm doing. And I don't know what's right and wrong at this point. Like my decisions have been really, really shitty. And I always feel like I'm getting a little defensive and I can be like, oh, well, I know the answer. Like I'm very like know-it-all-y sometimes with certain things, but I didn't know anything. I was just like lost at that point. So I just I gave it all up. And that's hard for me.
So since that time and now the work that you're doing with your own clients, what is the social rebellion that you're like looking to start or have started?
Oh, so with my clients, I think I've actually just I do a lot with my clients to push their boundaries to get them to, you know, identify with what, you know, and understand that what their choices are with health may not be necessarily what they need to do. And they're, you know, how are we going to make lifestyle changes? How are we going to create an environment for you that's going to be a lifelong journey where you're going to feel good the rest of your life, instead of like, okay, no, the keto diet is not working for you. Let's not just do that. We need to like overhaul your life. Like I don't put people on diets. I don't have them do all the calorie counting and all that shit. You know, I really make things a journey, like a health journey. And that's like, you know, there's so many pieces to the puzzle, like diet, exercise, rest, stress reduction, you know, supplementation. And I always say like, we're going to teach you how to ride the bike. Okay. Because we have a couple wheels here and your spokes are all kind of off. And so let's get them all straight so you can actually ride the fucking bike. Because, you know, they're so lost and confused usually when they see me. But I also just started an IG live, and that's like a whole nother social rebellion, I think. So we actually just did our first show and I'm really excited, but it's basically a girlfriend and I, and this is going to be like a game changer. I think this is more like a big social rebellion. Like our first episode was all about, you know, like kind of like sexual awareness. And, you know, we talked about like the best forms of birth control and like why, and like being able to communicate with your partner and talking dirty to your partner and like what that means and how to like express like what you need in the relationship for both of you to be happy, like sexually. And like, basically it's like so real and raw and so like authentic. But we bring up like all the taboo shit that people don't want to talk about. And the responses have been unreal. And I think that being able to bring that up and just like, if it helps one person go home and be able to communicate with their partner better when it comes to, well, the topic was sex, that one. But if that helps them, then, you know, kudos, I did my job, you know, because there's just so many things people don't want to talk about. And I think that might be my biggest thing. Like my personal training clients, like our little coffee hour in the morning, we call it, the topics we talk about are unreal. Like, and some of the women come in and they're just very reserved, and you can tell they don't talk about these things. It's taboo, or, you know, what's masturbation, like, you know, and then I swear to God, a couple months into training with me, we're all just like, it's a different person. So I kind of like to break down those walls.
That's one where I grew up very conservative, where that's not anything you talk about. I learned about sex through a book. So it's, yeah, to meet people that are wanting to change that, for coming from the world I came from, like that's huge, because it was something that I've gotten to dig into myself. But it's been more like meeting people and doing self-work versus I was raised to talk about this, because I was raised to, you don't have sex unless you're married, and then you don't enjoy it either.
Oh God. My mom was like the complete opposite. Like we could talk about anything.
Yeah, that's nice.
I know, right? Yeah, but until she like actually listens to the IG live and she's like, what the fuck are you doing? She's like, no. I'm like, I don't think she even watches any or listens to anything at this point. But like, she was so we actually butt heads about it now because she was so like liberal and like women's rights and being like so open, and like I was able to actually talk to her about a lot of stuff. And so it's just funny now how she's just become so much more reserved. Like actually during my prison thing, that humility that they went through, just being from the area that we grew up. It's a small town. Everybody knows each other, kind of like howdy doody. And so, here's this girl who like went to this high school and went to Michigan, and now she's in prison. I think they were really, it humbled the shit out of them. But I notice now that, you get comfortable, you go back to your old ways. And so it's harder now. I just did my first, like that one podcast about prison, on prison counts. And I haven't really like openly like thrown that out, and I just like threw it out, and the responses were overwhelming, but I think my parents were just like really nervous about that. I actually have a meeting today to talk to to possibly talk to my high school, the kids there. So we'll see.
So later today is when you have it?
I do.
Oh,
yeah.
exciting.
We'll see.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's by sharing our stories that we can like help teach and guide other people, right?
Yeah. And I can't sit on that one any longer. It's kind of like I'm ready.
Yeah, high schoolers, it's good to have people tell them like this is the path I took and this is where it led me, because they get to hear a success story. I mean, you have a success story too, but hearing like, I also made bad choices along the way, which led me to where I am today. Getting to hear that, one, your life doesn't have to be fully ruined because you made a bad choice. And also that, your decisions do have consequences too. So getting to hear the reality to things is
and that they're not like invincible. I think a lot of these kids think they're just completely invincible. Like I kind of thought that, like, oh well, I nobody was gonna think that. Like I don't judge a book by your cover, right? So I mean, I thought I probably in part back of my head probably thought, oh, I can get away with anything. I know how to get out of anything. And I actually got more time than my co-defendant, who like did not follow the right path. I ended up like having I was a complete lesson. So I mean, it can happen to anybody, and that I think is the important message that I need to tell these kids is like, the choices you make do have consequences. Don't think that you're invincible just because you grew up in a nice neighborhood and whatever it is, it doesn't matter. Like I didn't have any excuse to be doing the shit that I did. Like my parents, yeah, we all have like family shit, but like I don't blame that. I can't. Then my mom's like, "What did we do wrong?" And I'm like, "You did nothing wrong. It's totally like me. Like I can't even. Like it wasn't like I was abused and raped. Like nothing. Like I can't even come up with anything that I was trying to like really escape. I just was like a fun addict, basically. So it should be interesting, to try to like share that message. And I got to do it when I was in prison. It was the first federal inmate that ever. See, I thrive wherever I'm at. I feel like I thrive. It was the first federal, I've got something. I was the first federal inmate to ever get to leave and tell their story to a high school. So hopefully that opened up some doors. That was an experience. They like shackled me. It was so dramatic. They're like, they're like laughing as they're putting all these shackles on me and putting me in this like jumpsuit. I'm like, what are you guys doing? They're like, just go with it. I'm like, oh my God.
As dramatic as you can make it.
Oh yeah.
How did you then get involved with like the CHEK Institute and becoming a CHEK practitioner?
So after I ran, so my first, the first food sensitivity test that I ran was with a guy who had done a lot of the CHEK programs, and he was kind of like way up in the all those CHEK, HLC and exercise coach and stuff like that. So I just kind of learned through him and another trainer that was at the gym that I was working at. And we're like, okay, well, let's go check out HLC1. So we went and did that. And then it was like right there, I was like, oh my God, it was just, it was like, open your eyes, like next level shit. Like you don't even, I always forget sometimes that like my clients haven't gone through what I went through. So it's like, I mean, even just knowing what's in your water and like what is like what, a blue screen can do to you and EMF waves. And I mean, it was like so extensive. I was like, oh my God, I think my jaw was like on the ground the entire time. But, and then, I loved every bit of it. I was like on a mission. I mean, it was great. The content was great. I love the instructors. So Paul is a little crazy. I won't get into that one. And their exercise coach is great. Those programs are awesome. If you want to be like a really solid trainer. Have you guys done CHEK courses?
No,
Not yet.
know a fair amount of people who have gone through it.
I see. I don't even know. So people are still doing all the CHEK stuff. I didn't even know it was still like rocking and rolling.
It is. Yeah. One of my good friends here in Portland is, she's, yeah, I think, and I don't remember if she's like in one of the levels or if she just did the practitioner holistic lifestyle part, but yeah, she just spent time down at Paul CHEK's place a week or two ago. So
I'm not gonna comment on that. I'm sure it was a lot of fun. They probably built some rock towers.
Most likely.
No, yes, it's solid information. It's good. When you have Paul teach the last class back in the day, it's changed. Yeah, it's good. It's a good program. It's changed a lot. It was a little more, you could do a lot more. And so people were experimenting with a lot of things at the time.
So we've talked about general trouble, pirate trouble. We like to talk about good trouble and what that and creating good trouble. So going out in the world and stirring things up to create change, like positive change. So what does good trouble mean to you, and what would you say you're doing to create good trouble?
I think testing like the boundaries of, self-care and health and wellness is sort of like where I'm at. For me, I like to push my clients to try new things, and some are just so like, especially with food, I think that's one of those that's really like you got to push people, like they're such a weird connection with food. And I think when you can get someone to eat cleaner and understand why you're eating cleaner meats, and like the environment why eating a pasture raised pork is better than having one that is raised the other way, and not just because it's cleaner, but like the environment that these animals are raised in. Like there's a whole, like you got to look at the big picture here, and it's like environmental. It affects our environment, it affects everything. I think that is when it comes to like food and nutrition, that's where I definitely like to push the boundaries with my clients when it comes to that. And I'm when I go out and just in general, I definitely like to say that I'm pretty honest, and I'm pretty bold. So if I feel like, I'm happy to share, like I'm very upfront with the information that I have as far as like, gut health and hormones, and I can't stand when I go somewhere and people are just, it's like they're in the dinosaur days when it comes to like health and wellness. And I like to push the boundaries when it comes to that, and be like, and I'll battle someone when it comes to that, because I know it and I've been through it. So that's probably like my big thing, and not to, and the biggest one is like, don't judge a book by its cover. I don't like, I don't feel like there's too much judging in the world. Like a lot of people judge other people, and the less we can do that, the better.
You mentioned the word bold. What are some of the bold actions that you've taken to get you to where you are today?
All of them. Did I not just tell you my life?
Yeah. Or whatever
no.
What about
so, like,
recent bold actions?
I think for me, like, I think the day that I decided to go to rehab, right there is like a really bold action. Like I sat there and I looked at my dog and I was like, it's time, isn't it? She came, I was like, what should I do? She put her head on my lap, and I'm like, okay, I'm going. I got out and I'm like, I'm going to make the best of this, and that's when I started reaching out to and doing like community help with kids that were like in, drug programs and stuff like that, and talking to them as much as I could. When I went to prison, I tried to make the best of it by going and sharing my story and tutoring people who were in the drug program, because a lot of people haven't had the education that I had. I also got certified to be a to train support dogs. So they had a program there. So I was, that was something I did. And then when I got out, I jumped right into like, I'm going to be successful. Like I got this, like I was a trainer and I had made 6 figures in the second year after getting out of prison and having nothing, and then I like, when I have a mission, I'm going to do it, and then I bought a house. It's like, I'm going to get a house within a year. Like, this is what I'm going to do. And for me now, it is all about changing people's lives as much as I can. When I do a discovery call with a client, it's like the most exciting day. It's like Christmas for me, because I get to hear their health journey, and I know a majority of the time that I can help them or I can refer out and find a way. I'm a bulldog when it comes to health. Like, I don't mess around. And that's my thing right now. Is like, I mean, I get the messages and emails I get are like, they make you want to cry. Like, I have people that, they had diarrhea for 10 years and they're like, I literally just made it on a road trip and did not like have a panic attack the entire time. Some people, like I had one guy who had to plan his route to work to get like from gas station to gas station because he had such chronic diarrhea. It was so bad. And we got it where like he could go travel and like do all these things. And to like hear that you changed like someone's life like that, you can't take, I mean, that's like gold.
Yeah, that's before I was diagnosed with celiac. I used to be a runner and I had to plan my running routes around public bathrooms.
Oh, I bet.
Because you can't just get stuck somewhere and
no,
literally shit out of luck.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's hard. And I mean, then, like when you're sick and when you feel bad and it's just like, it's like you go to all the doctors, you do everything you're supposed to do. You try everything. Those are the clients that I get. They've done it all and they're exhausted. They're just like, it's like a desperate plea for help by the time they get to me, a lot of them. And the fact that they just like find me and they book that call, it's like, I'm going to do everything I can. Even if I have to hire someone else to take over my job, I'm going to get them better.
Yeah.
Because that's how I was. I was so sick. I mean, I would sit in a ball and cry in my closet, like that hopeless. Like I did not know what to do. And I just was always like, it will always get better. I guess told myself it will always get better. It will always get better. And I was just I can't sit back and like, I can't stand when people, like, I won't work with people when it's like, you can sit there and be proactive with your health and I will support you 110% along the way. But if you're going to sit there and just be like a reactive person and not do anything, leave. Like, I just can't do it. Like, I get it. Sometimes you're tired and it's hard, but you have to put the work in.
That's something we've talked about in the past with the being reactive is what we call the victim mentality. Like, life is happening to you. So being proactive is taking on, I'm going to be the hero in my own story. I'm going to take charge. So yeah, the victims are hard to work with.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I love a good proactive person, but I feel like we live in a very reactive world. So, people wait till shit gets bad and then they're going to do something about it. Oh, I'm just going to wait till I have a heart attack and then I'll decide to like take care of myself. Okay. How about we just like live a healthy, balanced life to the best of your ability, And then they complain about it. It's total like victim. Yeah. I don't have time for that. So sorry. I mean, I have a lot of stuff I feel like I could play the victim for in my life. And yeah.
So what is like the full scope of what you're doing with seefitliving?
So I'm slowly kind of like, my personal training business is organically fading out, which was sort of my plan. I do love training. I have my groups of people that I really do love training, but I find that for me, doing all the functional lab testing and all of that work is just so much. It's just kind of like my bread and butter. I'm way more passionate about it. I love to continuously learn more and more about it. Like, I could read about the gut and listen to like stuff about parasites and stuff like that all day long. I think the gut's a second brain. So there's a lot more passion behind all that. So for me right now, my main focus is really just, trying to help people and running the functional labs and getting that out there and educating people the best that I can, doing, my IG live and trying to get as much information out so people can understand that there is an outlet, and it doesn't have to be taking a bunch of medicine. It's like,
yeah. My like conversations I have with my husband, he's a chiropractor so he is on that path too of like,
oh yeah,
no.
yeah, that's crazy. I had one client, oh my God, she was on so many different, like so much medicine, like it was so much medicine and so many supplements, and they were all like counterintuitive. Like it was like one was to lower estrogen and one was to increase estrogen, one was to help with this, and it was like, and I was like, you need to talk to your doctor. She's like, well, they all work together. I'm like, no, they don't. This doesn't even make sense. Yeah, I might have lost that one. We haven't had our follow-ups really, but she was like, I just wanted to see the labs. I mean, she just sort of wanted, I don't know what that one was all about, but.
So where can our listeners go to find out more about you?
I am, so my website is seefitpt at AOL, sorry, it's my old email, seefitpt.com. So it's SEEFITPT. So it's not like the letter C, but it's SEE. And then on Instagram, it's seefitliving. So SEEFITLIVING. And then I won't get that right. I haven't had to spell enough with my little kid yet to be good at that. And then I'm Samantha Lander, CFIT on Facebook.
And then, so we want to know, is there anything else that you would like to share with our listeners, or do you have any questions for us that you want to ask?
I think the biggest thing, I mean, you guys might believe this, like when it comes to health, and if you're feeling bad, is like, just don't ever give up. Like that's the biggest thing. Do not give up on your health ever. There's always an answer. Like even if you do get diagnosed with something through a doctor and it is some like, autoimmune or some sort of medical condition where you do need to be medicated or something, it doesn't matter. Go back, run more labs, ask more questions. If you need help, on how to be an advocate at the doctor, then like reach out and get resources. I think that's always a really big one. It's like people, like we all need checkups. I got to go to the gynecologist. There's shit we got to do. And just be, confident in your ability to like ask for what you want with any practitioner or doctor that you're working with, and don't be afraid to say like, I don't want to go on birth control or whatever it is, and say like, this is what I want and it's my body. And don't let them, because I think a lot of times, doctors won't listen or undermine you, and practitioners, because I've had both happen to me. And so, listen to your gut and we'll tell you.
Yeah, I think that's the key word is like advocate for yourself, right? Within the medical system. And it can be challenging. And like you said, there are resources out there, and it's so important that we just don't take the word of our healthcare practitioners as God or as gospel. And we need to do what's best for us because we know what's going on with our body as well.
Yeah, definitely, for sure. I actually have on my to-do list. I'm trying to like develop a course that's how to be just a sign up, like, $30 course, whatever. It can be free, honestly, on how to be an advocate when you go to the doctor. Cause like I'll go in with like notes, like I'll go in, cause I know I get nervous. I actually, during COVID, I went on Medicaid because I really wasn't making any money. So I was on Medicaid and I had to switch doctors, and I went in, and the experience that I had was so awful. Like she told me there was no such thing as like a comprehensive panel or a metabolic panel. And she's an OBGYN. She couldn't run my hormones because that's not what they do. Like it just was nuts. And I was like, and then she just kept saying that I need to go on birth control. I think she thought like I was just like had these babies, and I don't know what it was.
Well, they use that as such a band-aid solution for anything and everything hormonal, right? Just go on birth control and just shut everything down and just live off of these synthetic hormones that do nothing for you. That's a whole other rant, but
Right.
So how would you recommend our listeners go about starting their own pirate journey? What
Well,
advice would you have?
Don't do drugs and don't go to jail. No. I think that I like to tell people to follow their gut. And if you have a vision, don't be afraid to do it. You know, a year ago, I was afraid to I invested a ton of money in my business and decided to automate it. And I was scared shitless that it wasn't going to work out. And it's like totally working out. So just have faith. Like, just really, like, I think having a vision, and if that's your vision and you want to do it, even if it's a hobby, just do it. I mean, what's the worst thing that can happen? Yeah, you fail, but at least you're like living. You know, I think people are just like numb. Like, pirates fucking live. Like, they do whatever the fuck they want. So go do whatever the fuck you want and live your life, you know, and if it doesn't work out, then you fall off your ship and get back on. Literally.
That's a good point too. Like, failing is learning. So
yeah.
failure is, you've tried. Failure is proof that you went out and you tried, and then you learned something from it. So if you get back on the ship, then you're proving to yourself that you've learned and that you're willing to try again. So
yeah,
go out and fail. Well, yeah. Do we want to hear? Let's end with the laugh. We know you don't have a pirate joke, but you do have a joke.
I don't. This is the only joke I know. I mean, I might know some others. Okay, so what does a ghost eat for breakfast?
What? Tell us.
Blueberries. That's my little end note for my child.
Yeah. Perfect.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Halloween next year.
Yeah. Well, this has been great chatting with you. Thank you so much for coming on and being so open and sharing your story with us.
Oh, no problem. I appreciate you guys having me on.